Hey everyone, Flo from OFTWOLANDS, and today we're going to talk about the new Blackmagic Pyxis again, but this time I'm going to compare it to the BMPCC6K Pro. I recently compared the Pyxis to the Cinema Camera 6K, but I got a lot of requests to also compare it to the 6K Pro, so I thought I would make this video to hopefully help you make a decision. I'm going to focus on the similarities, their differences, the pros of each of these cameras, and share my thoughts on which one I think you should get. I will also show you some quick image comparison including rolling shutter, IR pollution, low light, and field of view. Before I start, don't forget to subscribe to see more videos like this one, and let's get into it. This video is sponsored by Motion Array. Before getting the full-frame cinema camera last year and the latest Pyxis recently, the regular 6K and the 6K Pro had been my main cameras for many years, and I have shot anything from documentaries to travel videos, as well as licensing and personal content. Since its release, the 6K Pro quickly became my first choice, as it is out of the box a very complete camera with a beautiful image, and the addition of bigger batteries, internal NDs, as well as a tiltable screen compared to the regular 6K made it an easy first choice for me as a solo shooter. I've said it repeatedly on this channel that the 6K Pro is probably my favorite camera ever because of what it has to offer out of the box, and it still holds up even today many years after its release. With the release of the new 6K full frame last year, we got a very similar but also a very different camera, but we also got that new full frame sensor, which I love. Then the Pyxis was announced, the same amazing sensor and image, but in a more versatile, rugged and riggable box shape. Whilst the 6K Pro had been my main documentary camera for years now, and I have created some of my favorite projects with it, with the arrival of the new Pyxis, I now intend to make this one my main documentary cam. In my opinion, the 6K Pro and the Pyxis are both amazing cameras that fit different shooting styles and applications, and I will discuss this in today's video. Also, if you are interested in the accessories or my rigs, I will link the gear in the description below. Now let's jump into the comparison. The first similarity is that they both offer amazing features, image and specs for their respective prices. Both cameras can shoot up to 6K in resolution and in B-RAW. They also share the same dual native ISOs of 400 and 3200, and they both have 13 stops of dynamic range. The menu system is also very similar and super easy to use. They also feature some of the same buttons for functions and shortcuts, such as iris, focus or high frame rate. And finally, although they are different in types, they both have 2 media slots. But of course, these cameras have more differences than similarities. Between these two cameras there are 2 main differences, the design and the sensor. Let's focus on the sensor first. The Pyxis features a full-frame sensor, whilst the 6K Pro is a Super 35 sensor camera. To give you an idea of size difference between the two sensors, the full-frame sensor of the Pyxis is 36mm by 24, and the Super 35 one from the 6K Pro is 23.10 by 12.99. Now let's look at the design differences. The Pyxis has a box shape and is built with much stronger materials and therefore feels much more solid and is of course much heavier. The Pyxis also feels much smaller as it isn't as tall or wide as a pocket shape, especially without a cage. Then there are another 2 significant differences. The Pyxis has an optical low-pass filter built in and the 6K Pro doesn't, but the Pro has internal NDs and the Pyxis does not. The Pyxis also comes in 3 different mounts with L, PL and locking EF, but the 6K Pro is only available in EF mount. Then we have codecs. The 6K Pro can shoot in both B-RAW and ProRes, and the Pyxis can only shoot RAW similar to the ISO 12K or the Cinema Camera 6K. In terms of resolution, the 6K Pro can record in 6144 by 3456 and the Pyxis in 6048 by 4032. The frame rates are also different, and the Pro can reach up to 50 FPS in its full 6K resolution, whereas the Pyxis maxes out at 36 FPS. This is when they both record in their full respective sensors. The Pyxis can also record in 6K 16:9 at up to 46 FPS. Due to its sensor size and ratio, the Pyxis also features different anamorphic options and also more disc-squeeze options. The next difference is the connections. The Pyxis uses SDI, while the 6K Pro uses HDMI. The Pyxis also has an Ethernet port and a viewfinder port. Next we have the screens. The 6K Pro has a 5-inch tiltable one at the back, and the Pyxis has a 4-inch on the side that is fixed. The buttons layout is also very different. The 6K Pro features a few at the top and at the back, whilst the Pyxis has them mostly on the side, similar to the Ursa, and it also features a scroll wheel. In terms of audio, the 6K Pro has 2 mini XLR inputs, but the Pyxis only has 1. Then we have the battery type. The Pyxis uses the BPU system, and the 6K Pro uses NPFs. And lastly, the media. The 6K Pro uses 2 slots, one CFast and one SD, whilst the Pyxis has 2 CF Express slots. The Pyxis and the 6K Pro also have different accessories like the Ursa Cine EVF and the monitor for the Pyxis, and a smaller EVF for the 6K Pro or its grip. Now let's look at the pros of each camera, but before that, here's a quick word about today's sponsor, Motion Array. Motion Array is an all-in-one platform for creators where you can find pretty much everything you need to create videos from start to finish. From video templates, presets, motion graphics, royalty-free music, sound effects, and they have recently launched a new feature called VoiceOver. This is a tool that allows you to simply create voiceovers for your work by just using text. It is super easy to use and nicely laid out. All you have to do is type your text and choose the voice that corresponds the best to your project. You can also search by gender or category like commercials or tutorials, and you can even adjust the settings of the voice such as the speed and emotion. This means it's suitable for every type of video and you can get exactly the tone your video needs. You can then save the voiceovers in the different versions in a catalog and easily download them. I think it is a very useful feature, especially for non-English speakers. As a filmmaker or YouTuber, this means you can fully create your own short commercials, tech videos, and even short documentaries in case you don't feel confident doing the voiceover yourself, or if you don't have the budget to hire someone to do it for you. This can also be a great asset for pitching projects to clients or agencies for them to get a better understanding of the final piece. And during the pre-production phase, it can also be useful to check if a male or female voice suits better, and it allows you to test tones and cadence. Let me show you some examples that could suit my type of content.
Blue hour is definitely my favorite time of day during the cold months of winter. There is a certain calmness and peaceful atmosphere.
Today we are going to compare these two cameras and see which one is better suited to you.
As always, I wouldn't tell you guys to use something that I don't use myself. I've started using Motion Array a few years ago, and since then most of the titles and animations you have seen in my videos are from Motion Array. And I really think this new voiceover feature adds a lot to an already solid and useful catalog. Feel free to use the link in the description to check it out, or check out the different plans, or go to motionarray.com to try it for yourself. First, let's look at the pros of the older 6K Pro. To me, the biggest advantage of the Pro is that it is pretty much ready out of the box. Essentially, the 6K Pro is a complete camera from the time you open the box, and it can cover a wide variety of situations without the need to invest in more gear. One of the biggest pros is having internal NDs. As someone that shoots a lot of content outdoors on jobs or when traveling, having internal NDs can save me a lot of time, and it also means I have to carry less, and there's also no risk of me forgetting to bring a VND or a matte box. Whilst they might not be the best NDs out there, they are very useful and super handy. The screen is also a big advantage for that type of work, as you do not need an external monitor. I have taken the 6K Pro to several places, and I could really be quick and nimble, and no one really looked at me either. When comparing the two, the 6K Pro is also much lighter than the Pyxis, and whilst it might be taller, it is quite thin and meant to be held, which makes it a better camera for run and gun or compact handheld shooting. But also better for travel and personal content, as it looks more like a DSLR and doesn't scream cinema camera. Another big advantage of the 6K Pro is the ability to shoot ProRes. Being able to shoot ProRes internally is always a plus, as it is a very easy codec to edit with, but also archive and share. And ProRes can also be a requirement when it comes to client. Having a Super 35 sensor also means you get less rotting shutter than you would on a full-frame sensor. And depending on the lenses that you use, you can get more rich on the long end without cropping in on a sensor. For example, my Canon 24-105 is essentially a 35-160 on a 6K Pro. I also want to mention vents. This is something that I've talked about in my previous comparison. You can clearly see the vents on the insides of the Pyxis when you look from the top. And even though the 6K Pro isn't weather sealed at all, I feel that it is still more protected in that sense than the Pyxis. I took mine to Iceland for example and had no issues at all with the elements. But as I said before, a cage for the Pyxis might help a little. The startup time is also slightly quicker on the 6K Pro. And finally, the 6K Pro is also cheaper to buy and to run thanks to cheaper batteries, and since you also don't need a monitor to properly use it. Now let's look at the pros of the newer Pyxis. To me, the biggest advantage of the Pyxis is its form factor and overall design. It makes this camera so much easier to rig and customize to your own liking or needs. And if you add a cage, you can easily take things even further. The quality is so much more superior to that of the 6K Pro. It feels very well made and solid. Even the mount and buttons feel much better. The weight and density of the Pyxis makes it also a great handheld camera, as it helps with micro jitters. I have shot a lot of documentary content when I had to rig up the pocket shape, and it can be tricky, and you can also end up with a very tall setup. It works of course, but it's not nearly as easy as it can be with the Pyxis. SDI is also a much more robust and secure connection than HDMI. The Pyxis also features a lot of mounting options at the top and the bottom. This means that this is a type of camera that you can use bare bones or as is, or just with the top or side handle, but also fully rigged up. With the Pyxis you can also go a step further in customization with the side plates that can either be for an SSD, just mounting points, or rosette style. The other massive advantage of the new Pyxis when compared to the 6K Pro is of course the full frame sensor. The image looks absolutely beautiful, and the sensor makes for very immersive shots. There is so much depth and detail. With a full frame sensor you get the ability to also shoot 6K open gate in 3x2, which aside from giving you a beautiful aspect ratio, it also gives you lots of flexibility to reframe your shots. You can also film in 6x5 anamorphic, and I find this to be a huge plus as the height of the sensor gives you the ability to de-squeeze in 1.8 or 2 times without losing the edges or having to crop in order to get a 2.4:1 aspect ratio. On top of that, you can also shoot in Super 35 and even Super 16. So there's a lot of different choices depending on the resolution and format. Another pro for the Pyxis are the mounts. Having 3 different options allows you to use a wide variety of lenses using adapters or not. This also means you can use your existing glass or get new ones. For example, I use a Sigma MC21 for my EF glass and it works great. The optical low-pass filter is also a plus for the Pyxis. These filters are used to get a cleaner image, reducing moire and IR issues. Perception is also another pro for the Pyxis. It looks like a cinema camera should, and it feels like one too. This might sound silly, and I've said it before, but it can make a difference in the eyes of a client or on set. The Pyxis will also benefit from the upcoming monitor, which will make this camera even more versatile and flexible. Using BPU batteries also mean that you can increase the capacity drastically when compared to MPF, while still retaining the advantages of using internal batteries. Now let me show you a few examples using the same lens on both cameras at different focal length so you can get an idea of the field of view as well as the depth of field and overall look. Bear in mind that these are quick tests and nothing scientific or groundbreaking. First, here are some shots with artificial light. Now some in low light. Here's a quick example of rolling shutter. And finally, some IR tests using a VND at full stops. I think the choice between the Pyxis and the 6K Pro depends on your style of shooting and the type of work that you do. If you need or like to rig up your camera and to be able to customize it to fit a certain project, then the Pyxis is much better. But if you want a light camera that is ready and working pretty much out of the box without the need of external accessories and at a cheaper price, then the 6K Pro is a much better fit. Having that kind of image and user interface in a body that has a usable screen as well as internal NDs has made the 6K Pro a very hard camera to beat. But in my opinion, the image coming from the full frame sensor is superior to the one from the 6K Pro. The full frame has a lot of depth and detail, and combined with the OLPF filter, it makes for probably the best image that I've ever used on any camera. Shooting 6K open gate is pretty incredible, and filming with anamorphic lenses is a better experience with the new sensor, as you can make use of the full height of the full frame sensor. So to me, the Pyxis is better suited for documentary and narrative work as well as proper productions, whilst the 6K Pro is a better run and gun, outdoor, travel and personal camera. The gear that you already own can also influence at purchase, as they both have different battery types, mounts, sensor sizes and connections. I don't think there is a right answer as always, it just depends on what you do and need and what you have already invested in. At the moment, because I have the 3 cameras, personally the Pyxis is going to become my A cam for documentary work or when I need to use cine or anamorphic glass, and I will use the Cinema Camera 6K as a B cam alongside the Pyxis, or as a main camera when I need to travel or when I need to get shots outside or run and gun, like in the middle of a city for example, and I want to capture it in open gate or full frame. The 6K Pro now becomes my C camera that I might use for outdoor and personal content, or when the project doesn't require lots of rigging, or when full frame sensors don't give me any advantage for that specific project. That's it for me for today guys, hopefully this was helpful to you. Again, I will make a proper review of the Pyxis once I have used the camera enough, so stay tuned. Don't forget to subscribe and let me know in the comments if you need to know anything else and also which one out of the 2 you would pick. As always, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Also feel free to check out my 2 ebooks, Freelance Documentary Filmmaking and Travel Cinematography, where you can find a streamlined but comprehensive overview from pre-production all the way to marketing, built on years of my own experience shooting short documentaries and travel videos around the world. And if you are interested, I'm also doing filmmaking mentoring sessions when you can ask me anything about a wide variety of topics.